And let's go ahead and take our daily look at the calendar. So last class, we introduced this idea of somehow voting in a math class, and we talked about how if instead of just picking your top choice when you go to the polls, you were instead to rank all the candidates, then that's something that we called a preference ballot, right? One ballot, but you list your preferences. And then if we put everybody's ballots together and tally them up, we call that a preference schedule. And so we started working with preference schedules last class, and we'll do a bunch of that today and tomorrow. This class will actually learn 2 new ways to try to decide who wins an election. Most elections that we conduct here in the United States, it's a plurality method of voting, which means you just vote for your first place person, and whoever gets the most votes wins, and that's it. Today we talk about the border method and plurality with elimination. 2 other ways to try to decide who wins an election given all the preference ballots that you guys turn in. Next class, we do another couple of different voting methods, and then we kind of wrap things up in the 3rd class from now. October the 2nd is our review for test number 1, and then October the 4th is test number 1. So that's a Thursday. How many Thursdays is that from now? I guess it's 2 weeks from today. Maybe somebody can confirm that. But October 4th, I think, is 2 weeks from today. And that's our first test. And the other day we had somebody come in and talk about the wonderful peer tutoring program. It's definitely not too early to start studying for that test in 2 weeks. And the peer tutoring program can also help you with homework and just about anything in this class, and also take advantage of the Math Studio right across the hall. Any questions on the calendar? Okay, so on page 21, let's come up here. Okay, so here's a little note. Make sure that you get the handout that's on your desk. It is labeled Appendix 1. That is photocopied from an earlier edition of the textbook that we're using right now. But it didn't make it to the current edition, but I wanted us to have a look at it. Does everybody have the handout? Okay, so we'll start with number 1 in the middle of page 21. Can we go to Nicole? Okay, so we're going to just try to decide who wins an election by assigning points based on how many first place votes they get and how many second place votes they get, and whatever candidate gets the most points wins. Okay, and so the way we figure out how many points to give is whoever gets a last place vote gets 1 point for every last place vote, 2 points for every second to last place vote, and all the way up. If you had an election with 4 candidates, how many points would last place be? 1. How many points would third place be? 2. How many points would second place be? And then first place, 4. So a little shortcut, however many candidates there are, that's how many points a first place vote is worth, because last place is always worth 1. Fair? So if there were 8 candidates in the race, a first place vote is worth how many points? 8 points. However many candidates, that's what a first place vote is worth. For me, I always start at the bottom. Last place vote is worth 1. That's always the same no matter how many candidates there are. Okay? Now, it is possible, instead of doing that, there's this alternative where last place gets no points and then 1 point for second to last place. It gives you different point totals, but it doesn't change the outcome. The same order of the candidates will come out. So let's see if we can do an example. This one is from your book. So on the right-hand side, this is a preference schedule. And just to be really clear, let's take a look at this first column, A, B, D, C. We're just going to, like now, generally call the candidates A, B, D, and C. Imagine putting people in those spots. These people who voted in that first column thought that A was the best, and then B was the second best, and then D was the third best, and finally C was the fourth best, which is worst. And how many people decided that that was the right thing to do? That's 4, okay? That's not one person. You got to look at that and say that is 4 people. We're just compressing them into the column. Okay, so let's use the border count method. So what I'm going to do is figure out the points for A, and then in your groups with your neighbors, you're going to figure out the points for B, C, and D. Okay, so the first points that I'm going to look at is first place votes. How many candidates are in this election? 4. How many points is a first place vote? 4. Okay? So candidate A is about to get 4 points for every first place vote they get. So I'm looking in the first row. There's some first place votes for A. Those people like B, those ones like C. There's some more first place votes for A, and that's it, right? So true or false? A has 2 first place votes. A does not have 2. That first column represents not 1 person, but how many people? That's 4 people there. So give A those 4 different votes. And how many votes in the last column that they won? There's another 8. So actually it's 12 first place votes. So looking in the first spot, that right there is 4 people that thought that A was the best. Over here is another 8 people that thought A was the best. So altogether, 12 people thought A was the best. And every first place vote is worth how many points in this election? It is 4. So every one of those 12 people just threw A 4 points. 4 points plus 4 points plus 4 points plus 4 points, but that's just multiply. So right now we're at 48 points for A. Now we're going to keep going and look at second place votes. We're just going to add here. How many points is a second place vote worth? It's 3. It's always 1 less. So we're now looking second place votes for A. And I see just that in that second row. That's the only place A appears, right? How many people voted that way? Just 1. Okay, it is a single column, but that's not the important thing. It's at the number at the top. Happens to be only 1 person. So that is 1 second place vote. Highlight that in blue. Okay, we're halfway done. Plus, we're now looking at third place votes. How many points is that worth? It's worth 2. I'll highlight here in green. Third place votes for A. Looks like it's just the 1 column. And how many voters thought that A was third best? 9. Look at the top of the column. And then finally, last place votes are worth how many points? Always 1. It's always 1. Times, and then we're looking for A in last place. I'm just going to circle this in red. How many people thought A was the worst? 5 people. And then we'll do the arithmetic. You can use your calculator. You can do it by hand. I get 74, but somebody double check that. So this is already 48 over here, so it's bigger than that. So it's 48 plus 3 plus 18 plus 5. Yes. Okay. So you guys are right now going to work with your neighbors to figure out the points for B, C, and D. I don't know if 74 points is any good because I don't have anything to compare it to. But before you dive in, let me just show you a couple of patterns here because there's nothing hard in this calculation, but there's a lot of details. And so I want to make sure we don't get lost in any of the details. So can I just show you guys one quick pattern here? 4, 3, 2, 1. So you could just write that down for everybody right now. 4, 3, 2, 1. That's going to be the same for every single candidate. Yes? And there's something else that's going on here too. Can somebody add up all these numbers? One vote for 27. Anybody else? 27. What does that mean about this election? There are 27 voters in this election, yes? Now what I want you guys to do is add the 4 numbers that I highlighted. 12, 13. What is it? It's 27. Of course it's 27. Every vote needs to be counted. Every vote for A, everybody voted for A somewhere. All 27 people need to be in here. So it's real easy to catch mistakes if you kind of know a couple of patterns to look for. So we saw the 4-3-2-1 in black. That's always the points for a 4-person election. And then a better total to 27 people. So go ahead and maybe split this work up. So somebody do B at your table, somebody else do C, and somebody else do D. So decide who's doing what, and then let's get some totals up here. So let's come back together. Don't worry about right now doing every single candidate, but just make sure you can get one of these numbers. If you can get one number, you know the pattern, and then it's just details. Lots of arithmetic, lots of care as you do these calculations. Any questions on the board account method? It's called Borda because it's named after somebody. We'll talk about him in just a few minutes on the next page. And actually, this is, at least last I checked, how they rank the top 25 college football teams across the country. There's a bunch of people that vote, you know, like sports writers and coaches and lots of experts. And they decide, oh, okay, I think Alabama's #1 and LSU is #2. And so Alabama will get 25 points and LSU will get 24 points. And then the next team will get 23. And it goes all the way down. And then they add up all the points. And if you go look at some sports web page on Monday morning, you will see the new college football poll every Monday in the fall, and it will be a massive total. You know, like Alabama has 1,232 points. It's just like this. It's the same thing. Okay, so board account method. All right, so first of all, I like it over the plurality method, just looking at it at first glance, because the plurality method, what's the only thing that you put on your ballot? First place, and the plurality method doesn't care who you think is second best or third best or anything else. Whereas the Borda method, it looks at every piece of your voting information, right? It wants to know who did you think was the best, but also you thought #2 was pretty good, and #3 maybe was okay, and you really didn't like #4. And the plurality method does not look at any of that information. It's just first place votes, whoever has the most wins. That said, there are some weaknesses of the Borda method, and we're going to look at a couple of them right now. So part B says, explain how this illustrates that the board account method violates the majority criterion. Okay, majority criterion is a new phrase for us, and again, it takes some time to get used to. But in plain English, the majority criterion says, if somebody has a majority of the first place votes, they should win. If somebody has a majority of first place votes, they should win. The majority criterion is not a way to decide who wins. The board account method is a way to decide who wins. Who won the election here? D wins, right, with most points. So D wins this election using the Borda method. Now we want to decide if that was fair. We're not trying to decide who wins the election. We're just trying to decide if that was fair. And the majority criterion says if somebody has a majority, they should win. I don't care how you count the votes. They should win. Okay, so we didn't look to see if anybody had a majority, but you guys actually have these numbers. If you look in this, if you wrote it the way that I did, and look in that column right there, A has 12 what? First place votes. Can you guys help me fill in the rest? How many first places for B? There's 1 there. 14 here, and then D had nothing, right? Did somebody have a majority? I don't want to know who had the most. Doesn't matter who had the most. Did someone have a majority? There were a total of 27 votes. A majority means more than half, more than 13.5. Did somebody have more than that? C did. C barely had the majority, but they did. So according to the majority criterion, if somebody has a majority of the first place votes, they should win. Did C win? No. D was our winner with 76 points. C wasn't even in second. So this is a violation. So I'm going to write a sentence. You don't have to write this sentence word for word when it comes test time, but I am going to look for a sentence something like this. C had a majority of first place votes. But C was not the Borda winner. Questions on what the sentence means? With some more time and some more practice, do we feel like we could write a sentence, something like that, come test time? I hope. Guarantee I'm going to ask you to write one sentence like that. So try to get there. You don't have to be there right now, but try to get there. Okay, I'm going to use this analogy a few times in the coming classes. I imagine this whole voting thing as being two railroad tracks running side by side. On the one track, we're going to have ways to determine a winner. The plurality method, which is how we elect most people in this country, is a way to decide the winner. You count the votes, you have a winner. The Boredom method is a different way to decide the winner, right? You count the votes, you award the points, you find your winner. That's on the one track. Turns out we're going to study 4 different ways to find winners. We have already seen 2 of them now. This was the second one. Okay, that's the one track over here. Running parallel to this track is our fairness criteria. Fairness criteria don't really try to find the winner. They say you can count the votes however you'd like. But they try to determine if the winner that you found was fair. Okay? It's different. We're not trying to find a winner over here on this other set of railroad tracks. We want to know if each of these election methods, each of these vote counting methods was fair. And so the majority criterion is not telling you how to count the vote. It's just saying if something happens, if somebody has a majority, they should win. Doesn't matter where you are on this other railroad track. And this Boredom method violated that. On the next page, it says explain how this illustrates that the board account method violates the Condorcet criterion. 2 railroad tracks. Each of the criteria is on this one. The vote counting methods are over here. The fairness criteria are over here. Here's a reminder. The Condorcet criterion says if somebody beats everyone head-to-head, they should win. It's not telling you how to count the votes. It's not telling you how to find a winner. It's just telling you who should have won if somebody happened to beat everybody else head-to-head. If you have an election and nobody beats everyone else head-to-head, then the Condorcet criterion does not apply. It doesn't care who wins. It's only saying if somebody beats everybody head-to-head, they should win. And that seems reasonable. So let's come back here. And we're not going to go through all the details here, but what I'm going to do is A versus B, and then I'll write down something else that, actually that's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is A versus C, B versus C, and D versus C. Technically, every time we're asking about head-to-heads, we should do all of them. So can somebody name a head-to-head that I have not listed here? D versus A. Is that what you said? Yeah. D versus B, also not listed here. So technically we should do them all. Turns out this is going to be enough. But A versus C. Let's look at this first column. Between A and C, who do these people really like? That's A, right? A on top. So A just got 4 points. In this column right here, who do they prefer, A or C? Those people prefer A. Their top choice is B, but that's not what we're asking. Between A and C, who do they think was better? Well, they thought A was better because A was above. So that's another vote. Another vote for A. Next column, A or C, who did they like? They liked C, so that's 9 votes for C. Next column, A or C. A is on top, that's 8 more for A. It's over here. And then finally, the last column, A or C, C. So that's another 5 votes for C. And altogether, what do we have for C? 14. And altogether, what do we have for A? It's 13. So head-to-head, who wins, A or C? C wins. And in fact, if you did each of these other 2, you would find out that C is going to win. And in fact, some of you probably thought it was silly to even do that because you knew C was going to win head-to-head against everybody. Anybody explain why it was clear if you saw it? Oh, that's true. I do have C written 3 times, so I gave you some. That's true. I gave you a little clue there. Lucas, what were you saying? C has a majority of first place votes, right? C has 14 first place votes. So automatically, C is going to beat everybody head-to-head. Doesn't matter where C is. C could be dead last in everybody else's, and in fact, they were. C was, everybody, this was like really polarized. Everybody either thought C was the best or the absolute worst. But it doesn't matter. If C has 14 first place votes, they're going to beat everybody else, 14 to something less. So you didn't even need to actually count it. Come on in. But we, like if you want to write down the details, you can. So I guess here's what we'll say on the next page. C beats everyone in a head-to-head. But, and then the sentence finishes the same way the sentence on the last page did. How did we finish the sentence on the previous page? Yeah, but C did not win using Borda. That's not fair. I guess what we're looking for, ideally, would be a way to count the votes which is always fair. And this example and on the previous page at the bottom show that there's some inherent unfairness with the Borda method. I'm not saying every election has an unfair outcome when you use this. I'm just saying it's possible for an election to have an unfair outcome. And so maybe there's a better way to count the votes than this. Lucas. Yeah, there's going to be 4 fairness criteria we'll study. Yeah, it's possible. And if there's no way to find a way to count the votes, which is always fair, then there's like some inherent unfairness in how we count the votes. In every election, there's a possibility of some fundamental unfairness, no matter what we do. So we're getting there. We'll talk about that 1 week from today. But we're just looking at, on the one railroad track, ways to find the winner, and on the other railroad track, hey, was it fair? Did the winner that you find really represent the will of the people? And so far, we are striking out. Let's try number 3. Patty, you didn't read yet, did you? Okay, so just a little history thing. Again, the Borda count method was named after a person. That blank space right there had a picture of the man from back in 1700s. I don't know where it went, but it got deleted before I printed it. I put it back in, but anyway, if you go look up his name, you will find a picture of him if you're into that kind of thing. So we've now seen 2 ways to count the votes. Plurality method, first place votes only, and then this Borda point method. And then here, this is a typo, you can fix it. It says our 4th voting method, but it's our 3rd. It's something called instant runoff voting or plurality with elimination. Instant runoff voting or plurality with elimination. So here's how it works. Everybody goes and votes once. You just fill out the preference ballot once, and then you submit it, and then everything else is going to be determined. You don't go back to the polls later on. Round 1, if one candidate has a majority, does a majority mean more than everybody or more than half? Majority means more than half. So there's always someone that has more than everybody, but they don't necessarily have more than half. Like the chocolate ice cream had more than everybody, but it didn't have more than half. So if somebody has a majority, more than half of the first place votes, you stop. They win the election and we're done. Easy. But if nobody has more than half, then we're going to eliminate. Who do you think we're going to eliminate? The person with the fewest number of first place votes, right? So if we went back to our ice cream example, we had chocolate was first, vanilla was second, and strawberry was third, and nobody had a majority. So what we would do is we would eliminate. Who would we eliminate in this election? Eliminate strawberry. So now we're down to just vanilla and chocolate. Do we ask you guys to vote again? No, you've already told us who you prefer by ranking them in that preference ballot. I know which one everybody prefers if you've already given me that ballot. So I don't need you to go to the polls again and vote. We'll just look at the new ballots. We'll cross strawberry off of everybody's ballot and move everybody else up. Anybody that was below strawberry gets bumped up. I think that, I mean, every time you ask people to go out and vote, it's like time and it's money. It's a lot of resources that go in, like getting people to man the polls. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Getting people to work the polls costs money. Getting people to count the votes costs money. If you're running things on a computer, it costs money. There's security involved in a lot of places that costs money. And then there's the actual, like a lot of people just would not bother to go out and vote. Like if we had to go out and vote 8 times to elect one person, I think you wouldn't have such great turnout. So I think that's part of it. Yeah, Lucas.
Because it kind of looks like it's around at first. This is a very like stable results because one candidate drops off. I was looking at it, it's kind of like the plurality method, but the difference being the lowest person dropping off, and the next person getting their votes. So that's you can be one for one person. An example, the Olympics where people wanted one specific country to host it, and so that by voting for that changed it against their favor because of how they add the votes to the next candidate.
Yeah, there are definitely some weaknesses of this method too, and it is very much like plurality, and it's got that in the name, right? We're not trying to fool anybody. This is plurality, where you only look at the first place votes, but if you don't have a majority, you eliminate. It's plurality with elimination. So in round 2, we've eliminated the candidate with the fewest number of first place votes. Strawberry is gone. And then any candidate below Strawberry then moves up. And then you recount the number of first place votes. Raise your hand if you picked Strawberry first when we did our election. Strawberry was your favorite. All right, we have 4 people here. These 4 people had Strawberry in first place. We crossed Strawberry off, but I still want these 4 voters to count. So what I do is I look at who their second choice was. What was your second choice? Chocolate? Vanilla? Chocolate? And vanilla. So now chocolate and vanilla, however many first place votes they had before, they each got 2 more. Does that make sense? Every vote still counts, but we just start adding more first place votes to the other people that get them when Strawberry's eliminated. So round 3, eliminate the candidate with the least number of first place votes, move everybody up. You keep going until somebody has a majority. Eventually, somebody's going to have a majority. Just a matter of when. Okay, so let's go to number 5, Melissa. Okay, so here's our old R, D, and G, Republican, Democrat, Green election, percentages at the bottom. Again, this is first place and second place and third. Still that order. And it's plurality with elimination. First thing we do is plurality. So, round 1. We have R, we have D, and we have G. And we are doing plurality. So which votes are the only ones that matter? First place votes. So we add up everybody's first place votes. So just look at that top row. Hopefully we get the same numbers we got before. Any questions on those numbers? First place only. Does somebody have a majority? R has more than anybody, but they don't have more than half. That's 100 total. So we need 51. All right, nobody has a majority. So we eliminate. Who gets eliminated? G. So we eliminate G. And then we recount the votes. So now we're in round 2. We have only R and D. I think that's right. Let's cross some stuff off. So you can do this on the paper, you can do this on the test, but like really it's okay to just cross off all the G's and then look at what you have. The first column, who is still in first place? R. Second column, R. Third column, fourth column, right, nothing has changed. But now we get to the people who thought G was the best, but G is now eliminated. So this is where other votes are getting redistributed. In this column right here, who gets the first place votes? It is now D. D is in first place because G is eliminated. So those 13 go to D. How about these 2? R is above, R gets those. And so we get 47 and we get 53. Are there any questions on that step? Now, some students, before they've had a chance to really practice this, say, okay, let's eliminate R and then cross off all the R's and keep going. And it's fine to do that, but what gives us the authority to stop right now? D has a majority. You get to stop as soon as someone has a majority. You're not going to go wrong by continuing to eliminate all the people that are below. Like, you'll never change the outcome, but you will spend some time. You don't need to. So D has a majority. D wins with a majority. Here are some of the things in favor of this method right here. Number one, you get to rank everybody. So in some cases, even if it's not your first place candidate who gets to win, still your second place choice might count. Like these 15 people over here who thought G was the best, their second place vote counted, right? And maybe if you went to the polls and you knew that your Green Party candidate wasn't going to win, you could still, in good conscience, vote Green first, and then probably who would you pick second between Republican and Democrat? If you're Green, you're probably going to pick the Democrat second, and you're going to know that Green is going to get eliminated, but you can still vote honestly, right? You can still say, okay, I'm going to throw my vote to the Green Party candidate. They're not going to win. They're going to get eliminated pretty early, and then I can put the Democrat second. And so really my vote for the Democrat is going to be counted, but at least I get to vote sincerely. At least I get to support the Green Party. And this is not me like personally supporting any of this, but I get to support the Green Party, but still not, quote, throw my vote away, right? Even if G doesn't win, even if G is eliminated, still the Democrat is going to get my vote, which is better for me than having the Republican get the vote for those 13 people. Do we buy this as something as an improvement on the plurality method where you just pick your first place vote and that's it? Okay. Let's go to the next page. Number 6. Number 6 is our third fairness criterion. This is on the other railroad track here. Let's come back to the first railroad track. So, okay, so we have two different tracks. We now have seen 3 things on both tracks. So on the one track, this is how you decide who wins the election by counting votes. There's the plurality method, first place only. There's the Boredom method with all the points. There's the plurality with elimination that we just did. 3 ways to try to find the winner of an election. Running on this parallel track, we're going to look at who you decided won the election and tell you whether or not it was fair. There's the majority criterion. If somebody has a majority of first place votes, they should win. I don't care how you count the votes on this track. There's what's the one that we just did? Oh, the Condorcet criterion. If somebody wins every head-to-head competition, they should win the election. I don't care where you are on this track. And then finally, the third one, okay? So this is about to be 3 and 3 on the 2 tracks. Now, I know it's a lot to keep track of. And like I said, it wasn't until probably the 3rd time that I taught this course that I was really comfortable on these 2 different tracks. So be patient with yourselves. The monotonicity criterion. It's already hard to say, but monotonicity criterion. Suppose X wins the election. Doesn't matter how you counted the votes. I'm not telling you how to count them, but you've counted some way. And X is the winner. But then there's a revote for some reason. And people go out to the polls again a second time, right? And everybody keeps their preferences exactly the same. We're going to ask you to rank everyone, right? And so people aren't going to go there and just shuffle things up because that might change the election, and so be it. But everybody ranks their candidates exactly the same, except maybe some people rank X even higher on their ballot, right? What should happen? Who should win the election? X should still win, right? Almost X already won. And then people go vote again, and most of them vote exactly the same. But some people say, oh, you know, I want to jump on the bandwagon. X is going to win this thing. Let me rank X even higher on my election. X should still win, right? X should win like even more, if that makes sense. And that's what this says. Candidate X should still win. All right, here's the bad news. Number 8, Morgan. Morgan, can you read number 8? Yeah, it's bad news. And it doesn't even make sense that it's possible to violate this. But if you look in your book, you'll see an example where you'll be asked to find the winner of an election doing this elimination, you know, round 1, eliminate the lowest first place votes, round 2, and you'll find a winner, right? And then the people will go out and vote. Who was the winner of this election? Was D. And some people are going to say, you know what, I'm going to change my vote. I'm going to move D up even higher than I did before, and so D should win even more than it. Like, should be even an easier victory for D, and it's going to turn out somebody else will win the election. Not in this case, but it is possible to cook up some ballots where, like, you know, this like seemingly impossible thing actually happens. So have a look at your book to see an example of that. So here's number 9. It's a table, and it's a 3x3 table, because right now we have 3 ways to count the vote. That's in this first column. Those are our 3 vote counting methods to decide who wins. And across the top are 3 fairness criteria. And if we look at the plurality method in the first row, first place votes only, okay, it always satisfies the majority criterion. It always satisfies this new funny monotonicity criterion, but we saw an example where it fails the Condorcet criterion. Our RDG example was one where plurality just doesn't give us what we think is fair. And then we come down here to plurality with elimination. It always satisfies this majority criterion, but sometimes it violates Condorcet, and sometimes it violates this new crazy monotonicity. And then the last one, board account with all the points. Okay, it could violate majority and it could violate Condorcet. We saw that today. It always satisfies monotonicity. We had 2 tracks. How many things are going to be on each track? 4 and 4. Right now we're at 3s. Ultimately, next time we'll see the 4th and the 4th. Okay, so this table is going to be a little bit bigger next class. But what are we looking for? We're looking for a row that says satisfies. That's what I want, right? I want to see a row where no matter what happens, it always satisfies these fairness criteria. Okay, just in case you wanted to see what a ballot might look like, because this idea of ranking everybody is so foreign. Every election that I've participated in, every time I've gone out to vote, I'm told to circle my favorite candidate or fill in a bubble for my favorite candidate. I've never been asked to rank the candidates 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And so just so that you see that it's actually not very hard to give you a ballot, it's not super complicated to give you a ballot where you rank the candidates. This is actually this is a copy, or scan, I guess, of the ballot from just a few hours north of us, the Burlington, Vermont mayoral election, right here, where they asked you to fill in a preference schedule. They did that because they used plurality with elimination. And so it's not so hard to fill in the preference schedule. So you say, okay, I think Paula is my first choice, and then we'll go Hugh is second, and then Michelle, she's pretty good, she's 3rd, and then we'll put Jeff 4th, and then 6th and 5th. Easy, right? Like I just want to show you like a piece of paper where it's not super complicated to just rank your candidates. And in fact, I don't even think you need to rank, it says you may rank as many or as few. You don't even have to, if you really think that Faye is terrible, then don't fill in a bubble next to Faye's name. You don't have to vote for everybody. And then what do you think they do? Like, you know, it's a lot of information to try to pull together and find a winner, especially if you have thousands of people voting in Burlington, Vermont. So how do you think they found the winner? Yeah. Right, so plurality with elimination, that's what we do. But physically, do you think it's a person counting these bubbles? No, this is a Scantron, right? There's a machine, they put a big old stack of votes through the machine, it spits out the totals, spits out the winner. Easy. It's really easy. So again, I'm only showing this to you just so that you don't think, well, all right, great, so plurality isn't fair, but you know, it's too hard to do anything else. It's really not. This is something that has happened in the past in Burlington, Vermont, and it's easy. All right, we have 34 minutes for you guys to make as much progress as you can on voting activity 2. I'm giving you a bunch of time because there's a bunch of questions and this stuff takes time. So I see a total of 3 questions, each with different parts. Eventually you will find an answer key, and I'm going to walk around and help, okay? But let's see if we can work for 34 minutes and hopefully get through it.